The well-being phase is about setting up your life for long-term success. It's about spending time with your friends and family, returning to work or school. It's about doing the things that bring you joy. In our final episode of Come On In, AYA Cancer Unfiltered, let's talk about creating a lifelong environment of wellness during healing and well-being, preparing for the future. It's incredibly important during the healing and well-being phases to take care of your health. Diet and exercise is a large part of that. In fact, the National Cancer Institute says that only an hour and 15 minutes of vigorous exercise, or 2.5 hours of moderate exercise a week, have been shown to reduce the risk of some cancers by up to 21%. And studies show that a healthy diet and exercise regime reduces the risk of recurrence by even more. It can even be fun. To walk us through diet, exercise, and having fun while being active, we've invited back Jocelyn Harrison, a registered dietitian with a master's in public health. Welcome back, Jocelyn. So why is diet and exercise so important during the healing phase? How can food help prevent the recurrence of cancer?
Well, it kind of makes sense, right? That if your body is healing, it needs the best building materials you can possibly give it. And so that's where, your diet particularly comes into play. You might have specific nutrient needs just based on your, where you are at that particular time. And you want to make sure that you are really nourishing yourself so that you can regain your strength and your health to full capacity.
What about people who've had surgery on their digestive tract or may have gastrointestinal issues? Should they be following the same diet as everyone else?
There are more considerations for someone who is dealing with surgery, on their digestive tract, any of those types of surgeries. You definitely want to work with a registered dietitian who specializes in GI issues because there will be certain considerations about the types of food you eat, etc.
Many of these dietary changes may seem daunting to some people. Do you have any advice on how to implement them successfully into our daily lives?
Well, when you think about it, what we eat on a day-to-day basis is really just habit. We get up, we are used to like having that breakfast every morning. Generally for lunch, we have our go-to lunches, our go-to dinners, our go-to snacks. So, a really great thing to do is just focus on creating one new habit at a time. Start really slow, and of course, we like to suggest that you use a SMART goal. Like, what is it that you want to change? And what are you going to put into action? And the way that that might look is um, you want to eat more fruit because fruit is very healthy for you. It has a lot of compounds in it um, that are going to give your body what it needs for optimal health. And that SMART goal is going to be something that's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So the way that looks when you make the goal is I'm going to eat 2 cups of fruit a day. That might be a goal that you have. And then you have grace with yourself. That is your goal. And if you don't do it every day, that's okay. But you know that you are improving your overall nutrition as a result of that. You're just doing the best you can. And once you feel like you have that pretty much incorporated, you go on to the next thing.
I think we often consider diets to be boring. Is there any way to make it fun?
What a great question. So I work with patients all the time, and it is fun. A lot of my patients that I've worked with will say, wow, I've learned so much and I've tried so many foods and I've found so many new things that are absolutely delicious and I can feel really good about eating them. So, yes, what a great question. It can be fun.
What about physical activity or exercise? Why is that so important post cancer?
Well, we like to make a distinction. Physical activity is really kind of the goal. The goal is physical activity, and physical activity is any movement that is carried out by a muscle that requires energy. And then exercise becomes a subcategory of that. And exercise is something that's like planned, structured, and really intentional. But the truth of the matter is that sitting and not moving is a risk factor for cancer and cancer recurrence. When you are physically active, it produces certain hormones and compounds in your body that are very health promoting. Just like when you eat a diet full of nutrients, you are getting those compounds, other compounds that are very health promoting. So that's, what you wanna do. That lack of physical activity is a risk factor. And I wanna say another thing about physical activity. Physical activity could be anything. It could be walking, and it might be while you're going through, the healing phase, you're not up to your normal self. And it could be that walking to the end of the block is good enough for you. It could be any movement that you have, anything that you like. It could be dancing, it could be riding a bicycle. So, and really think about it from that perspective and don't necessarily focus on, oh, I have to exercise. We're really looking at, we want you moving around. The guidelines for the US are to have about 150 minutes of physical activity in a week and to do some type of um, muscle engaging activity 2 times a week. Those are the recommendations. And that can be a goal that you strive for, but you want to start wherever you are because any movement is going to be helpful.
What about people who struggle to exercise traditionally? For amputees, people with heart or lung issues, and those recovering from post chemo fatigue, physical activity may seem like a long shot. Do you have any advice for them on how to remain active?
So, someone who has a physical disability that is preventing them from, having full range of movement and the ability to exercise in any way, really should reach out to an exercise physiologist who is somebody who will assess what that person's needs are and then develop an exercise program that is specific for that person's unique needs.
What are exercise goals, and why should someone recovering from cancer set some?
Once again, let's go to SMART goals. You might say that, okay, I'm going to set a goal to walk to the end of the block 3 days this week. That's a SMART goal. It's very specific about what you're going to do. You can measure how you're doing with it. You want to set something that's attainable for you, and maybe walking to the end of the block is attainable. Um, it is relevant to your situation and it's time bound. You're giving it a certain time. So, yeah, that's really how you set exercise goals.
What counts as exercising? Does that mean going to the gym, or are there other more relaxing or social activities that could also count?
Well, you know what? Exercising, the whole idea of it can be like drinking a lot of water. I mean, some people are like, ugh, I don't want to exercise. But if you're going on a brisk walk with a friend and you're talking the whole time, then it becomes a joy. So, first of all, find what it is that you like to do and definitely engage other people in that activity, whether you're taking a class or you hire a trainer. When you have a buddy that you're accountable to, like you're accountable to show up, if you do that activity enough times, it becomes a habit. And then when you're not doing it, you can really tell.
What if someone is struggling to maintain or enjoy their exercise routine? Is there anything that can help?
I would say switch it up. Our bodies have the ability to do all kinds of movement, and you might do yoga one day. Just find what you love. And that might change over time, and you can switch it up and pick a whole different, group of activities that you want to do. Maybe you like playing basketball with your friends, or maybe it's swimming is your thing. It's just whatever it is that kind of suits your fancy, go do it. Just be active.
Thank you. Speaking of promoting your health, just like there are ways you can support your body, there are also ways to harm it. The last thing you want to do is put yourself at risk for cancer recurrence. This means educating yourself on substance use and avoiding the ones that are dangerous. First off, drinking alcohol can affect the way you heal after cancer. Many of the chemotherapy drugs used to treat cancer in AYA patients can affect liver function. Because alcohol is filtered out through the liver, avoid or eliminate alcohol as it can lead to further damage. Alcohol also interferes with many post-cancer medications and can make them less effective. Find out from your doctor whether drinking alcohol may create adverse reactions with any medication you're taking, and ask if it's safe to start drinking again and to what extent. When it comes to smoking tobacco, healthcare professionals have known since the 1960s that tobacco cigarettes increase your risk of lung cancer, esophageal cancer, bladder cancers, and heart disease. It also impacts your breathing later in life. Tobacco currently causes 90% of all deaths from lung cancer, according to the Center of Disease Control. Those who smoke are 30 times more likely to get lung cancer than those who don't. Don't risk it. If you've been through cancer, you're already at risk of having recurrence. You don't want to increase those odds. While it is true nicotine itself doesn't cause cancer, according to the World Health Organization, that doesn't mean vapes are a safe option either. And while most health experts agree smoking is much worse for you than vaping, the nicotine percentage in most standard vape pens is significantly higher than in cigarettes. These elevated levels of nicotine are highly addictive, which can lead to neurological conditions. It's also fairly easy to overdose on nicotine while vaping, which can result in hospitalization and even death. Vapes can additionally contain other additive ingredients like formaldehyde, propylene, glycol, and glycerol, all of which are classified by the Food and Drug Administration as probable human carcinogens, meaning they likely cause cancer. Currently, the long-term side effects of vaping are unknown, but if you've had cancer, it's best to avoid it. When it comes to the safety of marijuana, the answer is complicated. It's estimated by the National Library of Medicine that approximately 20 to 40% of cancer patients use marijuana. The statistics on whether marijuana use is harmful to cancer patients or can cause cancer are mixed. It's important to note that marijuana is not legal federally, which means the U.S. government does not allow the use of marijuana, even for medical purposes. This means you cannot fly or cross state lines with marijuana. However, marijuana is legal for medical use in 39 out of 50 states, including as prescribed by a doctor. And according to the National Cancer Institute's page on cannabis, studies have shown edible, inhalable, and oral spray cannabis to improve nausea symptoms in patients receiving chemotherapy. They also found that cancer patients with chronic pain who used marijuana early on in their treatment reported less overall pain and had a reduced need for opioid pain medication later on. Essentially, there is simply not enough data to make a definitive conclusion on whether using marijuana is safe. If you'd like more information, visit the National Cancer Institute's page on cannabis, and be sure to discuss any cannabis products with your doctor before use. Lastly, doctors are often asked if a patient can take someone else's prescription medication. The answer is always a resounding no. Every time a doctor prescribes a drug, it is prescribed to an individual person. Doctors are using their knowledge of that person's medical condition and their specific needs. Taking someone else's medication can not only be dangerous, it can be fatal. Many medications can have serious adverse side effects, cannot be taken with other medications, or are dangerous to take if you have a certain medical condition. Never take someone else's medication, as you cannot be sure how your body will react to them. Changing gears, it's important to understand that well-being is more than diet, exercise, and avoiding harmful substances. Well-being is also a state of mind. Dr. Leonard Sender, founder of the Society for Adolescent and Young Adult Oncology, explains.
Can well being be a state of mind? Absolutely. Well being is really about how you think of yourself in the context of your life, your spiritual life, your physical life, your relationships, the things you enjoy doing, your emotional life, the friends and acquaintances that you surround yourself with, whether you give back to the people following in your footsteps now that you have wisdom to share. These things have space in your world now.
After cancer, it's important to start working towards independence. This can mean different things to different people, but overall, this means it's time to start finding your life as an individual again, away from your caregivers. Dr. Sender mentioned finding a purpose, and one way to do that is giving back to those struggling with cancer. You've been through the diagnosis, treatment, healing, and are moving into the well being phase of your journey. You have knowledge that could be comforting to someone at the beginning of their journey. Being a mentor is important and allows others who are currently struggling a chance to feel seen, heard, and understood. To talk a bit more about mentorship and finding your independence after cancer, we have Johnny Imerman, the founder of Imerman Angels, here. Hi, Johnny. Welcome back to the show. During your healing and well being phases, did you start to regain independence? What did that look like for you?
Being more independent for myself, yes. I never would have started any organization or company before cancer, and here's a positive, and there are many positives, but one of the positives was that, it gave me the courage to say, "Wait, let's start an organization with a team, and if we fail and nothing works in a year, guess what? We're not gonna be dead." And that's kind of like your baseline is when you have cancer is like, am I gonna be dead in a year? Am I gonna be alive? Am I gonna see my 30th birthday? And so it didn't seem as scary. And I was like, okay, let's just try it. I have no idea what we're doing, but let's just talk to people and tell them what we're doing and let's just keep building it. I know a lot of young adult survivors who, within 2 months after their last treatment, they propose and get engaged. They elope and get married. They move across the country. They move across the world. They quit their company and they start another company that they like, or they go work for a company that was always their dream. I think it gives us a lot of courage and a lot of cases to live the life you want and do it now versus waiting longer to be like, oh, I have my whole life to do that stuff. It's like, nope, it can change tomorrow and you can be gone in a month. And this is the reality that I think young adult cancer survivors learn the hard way, but we learn.
What if you were working towards gaining independence and it's taking longer than you thought? What would your advice be?
For sure. If they're going through it and it seems to be taking longer than you think, the way to frame your brain around this is to break it up into small pieces. You gotta break this cancer fight up into small battles, literally as small as like today. So when I like coach them, they're young adult survivor, cancer fighter going through it at any age. I tell them all that. I'm like, there's a wall at midnight tonight and that wall at midnight tonight, you don't worry about what's on the other side of that wall. It's a tall one and it's big and it's a wall. It's there for a reason. You're gonna focus on midnight tonight and how much you're gonna do today, when you need to nap, to take a break, getting your treatments done, all the little things. If you're having a really shitty day, it's okay. You're gonna deal with that today. But then when you get to night and you get into bed and you close your eyes, there's a wall there. That's it. And then when you wake up tomorrow morning, there's another wall at midnight that day. And I'm not going to worry about what's on the other side. I'm just going to make today the best it can and honor it if it's a really shitty day.
I know Imerman Angels focuses a lot on peer to peer support. Why is being a mentor so important after you've healed from cancer? Who should become a mentor?
Any good human who cares about other humans, and I think most people do, the vast majority, but the ones who feel that way and have gone through cancer, they're the best mentors. We have over 13,000 mentors, close to 14,000 now across the planet, over 100 countries. They're just great people who are so grateful. Maybe that's the key word. They're so grateful to be alive and to win their life back. And they know that not everybody comes out of the cancer clinic and gets their life back. A lot of people don't make it. And I think that gratitude really helps a lot of us say, this is what I should be doing. This is important. I shouldn't be giving back. I should be helping the next person. I can't pretend that no one else is going back to that cancer clinic that I used to go to. And anyone that has a story that's comfortable and it's not too stressful to dig in, sometimes it takes a little time after cancer to let it soak in and then be fully adding. It's whenever they're ready to do it. But those are the best mentors. We want, they're volunteers. Anybody that's able to volunteer their time, their energy, their story to help the next person with cancer who has an experience. And it doesn't matter if it's thyroid cancer or it's pancreatic cancer or it's brain cancer or it's stage 1 melanoma. They're all cancer, and there's going to be somebody on their side diagnosed the same thing. And if you're in our database and you're in our community and we know you, we're going to need you at some point. We're going to call on you to say, hey, we got Carrie. Carrie lives in Florida, and she's going through the same thing. And just tell her your story, give her your friendship. That's 99+% of it. And then another example I would say with Imerman Angels is when somebody has active cancer, that's stage 4, let's say breast cancer, it's in the bones, it's in the spinal fluid. They're probably not going to beat it. They might beat it. There's always a little hope, but maybe they've lived with it for 5 years or 10 years, and we call them thrivers. They're thriving with the cancer. That person can still be a mentor for someone who just found out last week that they have stage 4 breast cancer. The fact that the first person is still alive 10 years out is a really strong voice. So even in cases where people aren't going to beat the cancer or it's near the end of life stages of cancer, we can still hook them up with another friend. And sometimes it's sort of like equals. You can actually hook up sometimes 2 stage 4 breast cancer thrivers. One's 8 years out, one's 10 years out, and they just want to have a buddy who actually understands because nobody else does. And it's kind of like just a mutually beneficial link. I don't know who's the mentor or the mentee in that case, but they sort of fight together stronger, and they just love the friendship.
Thank you. After cancer treatment, working towards independence is a good goal. Independence can look like a lot of different things, like working, going back to school, getting your own living space, or even taking care of your own needs throughout the day. But through this, many former AYA cancer patients have the looming question floating in their mind: will my cancer return?
If your cancer comes back, there are a lot of options. A cancer recurrent might be the point where you and your doctor decide that a clinical trial is the right approach. Clinical trials often have the most current research, the best thinking, and the most effective chemotherapy available. Adding genomics to the equation is important too. There may be immunotherapy available now that was not available for your original cancer. Treatment options get better and better every day.
That was hematologist and oncologist Dr. Leonard Sender explaining what to do if your cancer returns. Now, the fear that cancer will return is a very real concern and depends greatly on the cancer diagnosis you originally had. Here to walk us through recurrence and living with cancer is oncology social worker Janie Arikel. Hi, Janie. Can you talk about lifestyle after cancer treatment? Are there ways you can make the transition easier?
Some people are ready to get busy living. I think that's what it is. Looking forward to going out, looking forward to working. That's why school was so good. I used to fight for one of our patients to be able to go to class. And that's a way to get back in to your life. I think one step at a time. Because I think if you go in with an expectation that now I have to get back to work, I have to go to school, it's going to be so overwhelming.
Cancer recurrence is a scary reality. How do you cope with that?
One, I think therapy is very important. I think if you haven't had a therapist during treatment, I think having one even after is important. That's kind of when the dust settles and, shit's going to hit the fan. When it recurred at 38, it was a very different feeling. I was at a different stage in life. I can honestly say that I was not coping very well. It was something where I needed to find and fall back on my passion to help me manage that.
Can you explain what your passion is? How did it help you deal with cancer recurrence?
So my passion at the time, so I've always been into sports, always. So my two biggest sports are swimming and tennis. And I think finding something that you love and are passionate about provides some mental healing. And I think that for me during the ovarian cancer, learning to play tennis in a wheelchair. And I used to play tennis when I had both legs. Now that I'm able to learn to play tennis in a wheelchair, it was like amazing. When I was on the courts and I actually had no hair, I was on chemo. Um, and it was such a thrilling feeling to be outside, to be being able to play the sport that I've always wanted to play. And I never thought I could ever play it. But it really helped my mental state. And it was awesome because the young adults and the kids saw that I didn't have any hair and I was bald. And it was like, oh my God, this is so my two passions I was doing what I loved as a pediatric oncology social worker. I loved being a peds onc social worker. I loved it. It was my passion and will always be my passion, even though I'm not in it currently. And my other passion was sports, and I was able to do both of that.
I'd like to talk about hospice care and end of life care. What is it? Why is it so important in the AYA cancer space? This subject often gets a reputation for being deep or dark. Can you clear up some of those misconceptions?
It is a very deep question. It's not a dark question because I think end of life and the experiences that I've had with my young adults and children is actually one of the most beautiful experiences that I've ever had. I sub specialized in death and dying because I saw how powerful it can be and how the pain of losing a child or a loved one is the hardest thing that a parent goes through, right? But I think end of life starts with pain management. It starts with the social worker, the doctor, psychology, and we had child life, helping that patient walk through the stages of the end of life as they come closer and closer. I think our children came to that understanding a lot earlier than the parents. We had a lot of patients who knew that they were dying and would come to us and want to talk about it. And we, as child life, nurse, case coordinator, and social worker, would have these beautiful in depth conversations. They thought, oh, end of life when you die, it's like what I see on the television, like these black ghosts are going to come. And we're like, that doesn't necessarily have to be it. Like it can be in a garden, it could be angels. Like some of our kids actually did see angels in their room. That was something that they were able to see. So they come to us, they ask questions openly. Is it painful? Does it hurt when you die? Will I not be able to breathe? Will I suffocate? And we are able to have these very in-depth, open conversations with the children and young adults before the parents, because the parents are the ones that are the hardest, right? And they think that the kids don't know about end of life. They think that kids don't know that they're dying. That's not necessarily true. They already know it because something within themselves, their soul or their heart, it just comes to them. It just like, and I think walking them through those steps until they take their last breath is what my role was. And also walking the families through whether it's praying or making sure that their rituals are met, depending on their cultural identity or the religious preferences. There's only two times in this world one can experience to be there. One is when a person comes into life, into this world, and the other one is when the person leaves this world. The little things, making sure that, some people think that they can't lay in the bed with their child. We're like, no, we want you to be with them. Lay in the bed with that child or adolescent. We've had young adults who have had wives. One of our patients wanted to get married before he died. He wanted to see his child born. And that was his goal. And we're like, okay, we're going to help you make this happen as best as we can. And they got married one weekend. We discharged them. His counts were up. They got married in a beautiful ceremony. He came back the next day and started chemo again. His wife happened to be pregnant at the time and was able to see his son. And then within a week, he died. So death and dying and end of life doesn't have to be dark. It can be beautiful. I think it's how you manage that with the families. Even picking, decorating the casket according to how their daughter would have liked it. Those are the examples that I have in walking these families through end of life.
This is our last episode, and we appreciate everyone who has listened, shared, or used this resource so far. Here is a closing message from Dr. Leonard Sender.
In the early days of AY Cancer Movement, I co-founded an organization called Stupid Cancer. The call to action those days at Stupid Cancer was a phrase that I really, really like. And that phrase is what I'd like to say to you at this point in your journey. Congratulations, you've come a long way. Ready for the phrase? Here it comes. Get busy living.
Remember, this resource is always here for you. You can always come back if you need to, or share it with someone else who does. And if you never need it again, that's okay too. From all of us, we wish you well. My name's Marie Sad, and in the words of Dr. Sender, get busy living. This has been Come On In, AYA Cancer Unfiltered, a podcast for patients 15 to 39. This podcast was produced by Reimagine Well with funding by 70K. Our creative producer is Emma Grace Eisenman with video production by Sedona Cruz. Our creative director is Roger Holzberg. Our content supervisor is Adele Sender. Our project manager and coordinator is Pamela Primessa Karstens. Our social media manager is Sedona Cruz. Our social media intern is Ryan Meglino. Script by Emma Grace Eisenman, based on the Adolescents and Young Adult Cancer and Oncofertility Guides by Reimagine Well. Audio editing by Emma Grace Eisenman. Video editing by Sedona Cruz. Additional audio and video editing by Graham Karstens. Digital artwork by Ray Jameson. Graphic design by Sarah Gray. A big thank you to our medical experts, Dr. Leonard Sender, Dr. Lakshmi Kondapalli, Jocelyn Harrison, RDN, Ginny Urikel, MSW, and Debbie Wagers, CCLS. Our guests for this episode were Johnny Imerman of Closed Talk and founder of Imerman Angels, Mallory Casperson, MS, co-founder and CEO of Cactus Cancer Society, Lauren Creel, MSW, MPH Chief Operations Officer of Cactus Cancer Society, David Craig, CEO of Grit Health, and Lauren Lustauskas, Vice President of Community at Grit Health. Stephen Giolarakis, President of the Stephen G. Cancer Foundation, Angela Giolarakis, PhD, founder of the Stephen G. Cancer Foundation, and Blake Dirksen. Thank you. This podcast is possible because of you. I've been your host, Marie Sad, and thank you for listening.